I'm free! Free at last!
Well, here I was, all excited for a series semi-final, an episode that would rival those of the past, The Stolen Earth, Bad Wolf, Army of Ghosts. This episode didn't even come close. Just a complete ball-tickling time waster without any stakes or tension, bloated with characters I don't care about, who have nothing of value to say. This story is the convergence of this season's narrative arcs. The One Who Waits, Ruby Sunday's mum, the Susan Twist cameos, the Grumbling TARDIS, and Triad technology. Let's start with this episode's first mistake, trying to juggle all these ongoing narratives in one go. The priority of which ones are the most important never really gets established, so characters jump to and fro from figuring out each one as though they're all somehow connected. It starts with the Doctor trying to figure out why he sees Susan Twist cameos wherever they go. I was initially overwhelmed with disappointment that these teasing shots from the Next Time trailer turned out to literally be teasing shots for the Next Time trailer. 2 adventures to different planets that the budget couldn't allow. Instead, we are supposed to be impressed with the Susan zombie at the end of the episode, which pales in comparison to these amazing designs. If I had to guess, I would assume that the makeup artists that worked on this episode gained such awesome skills on a website like Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video. Maybe in their training they watched this 3D face painting video because, like Doctor Who, they can make things on a budget too. Skillshare is a huge online learning community run by professionals, experts, and creatives. They've got classes on just about anything, from animation to creative writing to photography and filmmaking. It's massive. As mentioned in a previous video, I will be taking a deep dive into their DaVinci Resolve tutorials so I can edit my videos more efficiently and produce better content for you all. Now, before you all rush over there, remember that just visiting the site only gets you a 7-day free trial of Skillshare Premium. If you use my link down in the description, however, you can get a month's free trial of Skillshare after joining. A month's free trial gives you enough time to try Skillshare properly so you can watch through a learning path and commit yourself to learning a skill properly. Become one of the first 500 people to join the largest learning community for creatives by clicking my link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the Mega Review. In the year of our Lord 2024, Susan Triad is an IT genius that is sending out her vaguely established technology to the world for free. Effectively, 2 coincidences collide here, in that S-Triad is an anagram of TARDIS and Susan is the name of the Doctor's granddaughter. It's not inconceivable that this woman could be her if her last screen appearance didn't happen to be in the year 2160. This illusion wasn't the first time such a possibility could have happened in this series, so I was extremely hyped for such a reunion to occur. The episode bent my ear further when we learned that Susan wasn't just another tech billionaire punching bag, but actually happened to be a nice person. Turns out that was all just to get the Doctor and the audience all nostalgic, so points definitely awarded for this bait and switch. I really appreciated the way that Ruby was introduced to regeneration by her questioning how the Doctor couldn't recognize his own granddaughter. Then the characters politely interrupted each other 3 times in the space of a minute.
Sorry.
Statistically.
Sorry, but can I say the obvious?
The last thing that I should do is take a time machine back there.
Excuse me.
Followed by a delicate moment shared between the Doctor and Kate. The idea of him having children in the future and grandchildren in the past was an awesome, mind-bending concept, and I genuinely felt for the Doctor as he urged for preserving his children owing to the destruction his mere existence brings. Kate arguing that he brings joy was a lovely moment too. The Doctor's hearts clearly yearn for a family reunion, with this very effective tension of potentially messing with his own timeline hanging over the episode like a big black cloud. The Doctor is aware, so aware, that going and seeing who he believes to be his granddaughter is a trap, much to the humorous reminders of this Morris character. He was a bit of a show-off, but I kinda loved it. He was a fun reminder of the threat level and showed great energy and enthusiasm throughout. I couldn't help but wonder though why he is essentially replacing Shirley. Remember her? Infamously uninteresting ex-companion Mel then gets thrown into the episode, another unit employee that establishes Susan Triad as definitely being human. She does this through a techno handshake gizmo, but also established this.
Good mum and dad. We didn't have much. He was a postman, she was a dinner lady.
Yet failed to bring this information to the doctor's attention.
Just because Susan Triad is nice doesn't mean she can't change.
I can only see this theory working if Susan Triad was so entrenched in her own lie that she couldn't help repeatedly telling people her backstory. She only tells this story once though, so that should be discussion over, right? With all that hanging in the background, 7 minutes in, all attention is redirected to what the episode is named after, The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Because Ruby is just such a legendary character. So, there was CCTV footage of Ruby's abandonment, apparently, which is on a VHS cassette kept in a shoebox. Carla decides to bring both herself and the tape to Unit HQ because apparently with their fantastic technology, they can sharpen the image in the hopes of identifying Ruby's mother. Before that can happen though, Cherry, Carla's bedridden mother, apparently needs a babysitter, and that babysitter is Mrs. Flood. Yep, that weird fourth wall breaking neighbor of theirs. Carla asks Ruby to go and fetch her, as though it's a regular thing they do, but apparently this is her first time doing this.
Oh, leave it to me. I nursed my old mum through diabetes and a hip operation.
I don't know why a scene of Mrs. Flood cruelly depriving Cherry of a cup of tea was needed, or why Carla left her mother in the hands of somebody who may or may not be trusted to take care of her. When the characters end up at Unit, the videotape shows footage of this static noise, which, imagining Ruby and Carla watching on her birthday, provided quite a hilarious image in my mind. They extrapolate the footage into this weird 3D place that Unit has a special room for. I really enjoyed the Doctor mocking this grandiose setup, but from there, my God, this segment was such a drag. Literally just a bunch of characters continually spewing out obvious things that the audience already knows.
You were born on Christmas Eve.
I was abandoned. She left me at the church on Ruby Road. It was snowing.
It's snow.
The woman, she went to the church, she left Ruby in the doorway, and then she walked away.
We know.
That's me coming back in time in 2004 because goblins.
We know.
I had to go back to the church to save little baby Ruby.
We know.
And then I just turned away.
We know.
It's a crude videotape of a snowstorm, 19 years old, kept under the bed in a shoebox.
We know! The TARDIS is revealed to have some kind of stormy thing around it, which stops the memory and turns big man soldier Winston into a sand sculpture.
He looks like he's been dead for 100 years.
What? He'd be a skeleton if he'd been dead for... In fairness, I did really like this bottled up anger that Gemma Redgrave was able to deliver here. She obviously blames the Doctor for throwing caution to the wind here.
Colonel Chidozi, you will return to your position.
Just see if there's anything there.
Doctor, you said not to move.
I know. But just look.
As though he were dispensable. She obviously can't complain either because the Doctor must be obeyed at all times, you know, owing to him being the best and being the rest. This was where the Doctor decided to switch back to the Susan Triad quest line.
She's due to make the speech at 3 o'clock. We've got 10 minutes. I'm with the media team. Thanks.
Sorry, but can I say the obvious? You've got a time machine.
Precisely, Rose. The Doctor could have gone back in time, say an hour, maybe, to the Triad building, giving him plenty of time to chat with Susan to establish who she was. Instead, they chose to leave it to the last 10 minutes before she went live to the UN for the Doctor to speak to her. Even if they tried to go back in time, or even had it suggested, and then subsequently couldn't for one reason or another, that might have given them more reason for their urgency instead of just insisting upon it. Worse still, the Doctor decided that a detour into Ruby Sunday's past was just as necessary to UNIT, making me think that the Doctor also could have prevented a rushed conversation with Susan if he wasn't so busy f***ing around with Ruby Sunday's VHS tape.
I'm with the media team. Thanks.
It doesn't exactly look like there was anything barring the pair from entering the building to begin with. Security Steve just nods and they're through. Right after that, we had an awesome outburst from Gatwa. I thought this was the moment where we were going to get the cry of the night, but Mel telling him,
Now stop grizzling and fix it.
was a great line. Shame is probably the only good line that Mel has in the entire episode. Susan Triad comes on stage dancing like she was Theresa May, which, oh my god, that was 5 years ago, Russell. Who bloody cares about Theresa May anymore? Meanwhile, at UNIT, everything predictably goes wrong with the Doctor removing himself from the picture.
All non-essential staff will clear the room right now. All non-essential staff, out!
Rose is essential staff? The character they sent out to investigate shoplifters?
They never give me proper work. They had me investigating shoplifting in Catford.
Is shoplifting even an extraterrestrial issue? Are the local police in Catford doing such a crap job that UNIT are being brought in to deal with it? Isn't it obvious to her that UNIT are just putting up with her like an endless take your daughter to work day scheme?
They never give me proper work. They had me investigating shoplifting in Catford.
Why stay if you don't like what you're doing? The Doctor then commands Ruby to go back down into the window room.
What for?
You do not question, you move.
Which was kind of weird. I get the whole don't question the Doctor protocol, but Kate is surely aware that Ruby being sent back downstairs might mean a confusing off-screen death might occur for her, like the soldier Winston. Either way, new character Harriet is revealed to be one of the Harbinger children, like the one we saw in The Devil's Cord. As much as I like these disguised bringers of the end times, I was surprised that nobody in the room decided to move over to Harriet and even have a proper look at her. They're all rooted to the spot, simply determining that
She's possessed.
without seeing anything other than the back of her head. She rolls out a list of gods that should have been in this episode instead of the biggest, baddest one of them all. You know, I like the bat dog thing. It's just a shame we couldn't see more of it in the episode, to be honest. This ending initially had me feeling alienated as hell. I don't think anything that happened in the episode had any bearing on its outcome. They just figured out, thanks to the VHS rewind, that there was something latched onto the TARDIS. So, what would any self-assured Doctor Who fan such as myself do in a situation like this? The Pyramids of Mars episodes are all on iPlayer, as is every other episode of Classic Who, bar the most important ones for establishing the granddaughter Susan. Honestly, after watching Pyramids of Mars, I don't think it justifies the hype surrounding this episode's conclusion. Credit where it's due. Sarah Jane is an absolute bae in these episodes. She's witty, funny, and lives up to the plucky young assistant of the Doctor's. I also really liked the Egyptian mythology stuff that was hovering around in the background of this story. This idea that it took hundreds of gods to imprison Sutekh, with Horus being an in-story character as well. Awesome. Even the look of Sutekh in this episode is absolutely wild. Then he took off his mask, and he really should have kept it on, to be honest. Sadly, I think almost everything else about this episode was just not for me. Every single death was absolutely hilarious, and I don't just mean when characters get greened. They had this Egyptian guy who was a worshipper of Sutekh, who summoned in another servant of Sutekh, who killed the Egyptian guy and then transformed into an old white dude. This guy just looked like the Demon Headmaster. For a 4-part story that is titled The Pyramids of Mars, they don't even go there until the final episode. Even when they do, It's just a really appalling looking set with some weird swirly backgrounds in between the walls. Most of the episodes take place in 1911 in a building that is supposed to be a unit base at some point in the future. There were all these back and forth interactions between Sutekh and his servants, which really just served to make the pair nothing more than boring, scheming mustache twirlers. And don't get me started on the score. This might be the single biggest reason why I've never gone and watched Classic Who. Brr, 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 brr. Brr, 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 brr. Brr, 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 brr. It's terrible. The mummies were fine, I guess. The costumes were just too clunky to ever make them feel like a threat. These episodes have some very obvious inspirations on both the return of the show in 2005 as well as this newest iteration. Even the Doctor being spared from death had utility in the villain's plans. The Doctor has this weird escape from death that gets shrugged off without question, and a few riddles later the day is saved. It's honestly not the worst hour and a half I've ever spent, but my God, was it a drag at times. The only takeaway I have is the possible appearance of other Egyptian gods to help save the day. Needless to say, my hopes were entirely in vain. So, did it suck? This episode needed work. Frankly, this whole season has needed some rethinking. Firstly, let's talk about the TARDIS having a tummy ache being an ongoing plotline for this series. They needed more than just a forgettable recurring sound effect to make this idea of the TARDIS being possessed or consumed more unique and strange. The sound effect is so similar to others that the TARDIS makes that they have to have the characters reacting to it to make it memorable. In spite of even that, I don't know why the Doctor is so uninterested in figuring out why his time machine has these problems. Maybe there was a reason he was putting it off? There wasn't. Secondly, Ruby and her family get a lot of setup in A Church on Ruby Road and haven't had any progression or development from there. Every opportunity they've had to make them interesting or develop them has come and gone. And I say this because when Carla says this,
I know his name. It's the Beast.
it seems to have come out of nowhere. Is she referring to this beast? Because that image was put in my head for the remainder of the episode, and it just made me wonder why on earth would she say such a specific line. I felt bombarded by the thought of wondering why characters say such stupid things all the time in this episode. Unit, knowing everything, made for extremely dull conversation.
The name is TARDIS technology.
Well, obviously. Thank you.
Even I got that.
Ruby is a foundling and was left on Ruby Road.
We've got your history after that incursion on December 24th.
And why are so many characters constantly complimenting each other?
Two different shades of red.
Doctor, welcome back aboard.
Someone has been working out.
That's right.
Looking good, sir. Ruby Sunday!
Oh, you're gonna warm me. It's amazing. You look gorgeous.
Aren't you a beauty?
Thank you.
You too, Ruby.
Have we met before?
Well, if you don't mind my saying, I'd remember a handsome chap like you.
Even Unit's pointless robot got a compliment.
Oh, nice upgrades.
It just makes everyone appear so shallow, as though they have nothing to actually talk about. There was this really infuriating callback to Davina McCall as well.
I love Davina. I love Davina. Is she nice?
Oh, she's absolutely lovely.
That's one good thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise we were in a fan club meeting. And Mel, possibly the most baffling line deliverer of them all. She not only loves repeating story beats,
Well, it got me cheering. I wanted to cheer. 90 minutes time, I addressed the United Nations.
In 65 minutes, it's 1500 UK time. That's when Susan Triad addresses the United Nations.
She's due to make the speech at 3 o'clock.
but the most bizarre moment of all was when she was trying to reassure Carla about her daughter going into a glass room.
Don't worry, she's safe. I lost my family to the most terrible things, but the doctor helped me, I swear.
Jesus Christ, she could have said almost anything else to make her feel better. Basically, I did not come out of this first episode a happy bunny. I know a lot of people were somehow impressed by this episode, and I am just praying that part 2 can provide us with a conclusion worthy of a Doctor Who finale. Look at this hopeful young boy! Oh.
Sutek, the greatest monster I have ever fought.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. You know you're in trouble when the previous episode recap for the finale winds up being 11 seconds long, almost as though nothing else in that episode mattered. What we then bore witness to was what should have been showcased at the end of part 1.
I bring Sutek's dust of death.
A glorious sequence of unrelenting death. UNIT then tried to dish out that very same death by shooting the TARDIS and its most recent hitchhiker. One of these weapons is a set of lasers that I imagine are being controlled by Rose with a tablet. No fear, no emotion, just swiping left all those filthy male-presenting Time Lords that are popping up on her Tinder feed. And Morris shooting from his Segway. Like, Jesus, man. Don't give the Americans any ideas.
All the bullets turn to dust, ma'am.
Oh my god, dude. No f***ing shit. Across London, we see the entire city snuffing it simultaneously. As much as this frantic segment with the death of UNIT and the Doctor being scooted around was very visually impressive, sandwiched in between was the death of Mrs. Flood and Cherry. Now, am I not supposed to take these scenes at face value? Because the continuity is all over the place. In part 1, Carla leaves, and immediately after this, Cherry is denied a cup of tea as a massive storm cloud flies over London. When we see the pair dying, the weather has not only cleared up, but...
In 65 minutes, that's when Susan Triad addresses the United Nations.
Am I just meant to assume that Mrs. Flood was watching the window for over an hour? Meanwhile, Ruby can't see her mother again, and the Doctor and Mel reunite with her in the memory room where a spare TARDIS has been generated from last episode. In order for the TARDIS to be fully materialized and usable, Ruby must remember it. Hard. What it effectively means is that all the dialogue where the characters just reiterated information and events to the audience in the last episode was all in aid of generating a stronger memory of the event. Here, though, Ruby is able to generate a stronger memory without saying a word and just thinking about it. If this was the case the whole time, why was all that expositional dialogue even needed, if not simply to stretch out the runtime? Then the sickly TARDIS came downstairs into the time window room, which was where the Doctor said this.
Sutek, the greatest monster I have ever fought.
I mean, yeah, he's pretty evil for what he does in the first 5 minutes of this episode, but apparently we needed the Doctor watching Pyramids of Mars on iPlayer to support this rather bold claim. What's shown on the tablet is supposed to be a memory, right? If so, why isn't this from the Doctor's first-person perspective? Because budget. Sutek then reveals that he was latched onto the TARDIS from the moment he was banished in the Pyramids of Mars. I would have had no problem if Sutek latched himself on at some point in, say, the anniversary specials or in an episode succeeding them, but not for this absurd amount of time. Just look at these memes that exemplify just how ridiculous this notion is.
Ridiculous.
Captain Jack Harkness grasping the TARDIS in the time vortex is actually just him giving Rufus a big ol' hug. Is Capaldi just sitting on his head right here? Ooh, ouch. I would hate to be a dog wrapped around the TARDIS in these situations. Oh yeah, and remember when the TARDIS got cloned in the Giggle? Has Sutek also been duplicated? And where the hell were Tennant's Doctor and Donna throughout these episodes? Sitting in a garden sharing a glass of Sauvignon Blanc? Credit where it's due, I'm glad they didn't animate the dog's mouth like they did the Space Babies. The voice of Sutek being performed by none other than the original voice of Sutek and the voice of the Beast in the Satan Pit episodes wonderful stuff. They've got all the production elements with Sutekh right. It's just his dialogue isn't remotely interesting. I only know that he wants everyone dead, which, yeah, duh, he's the god of death, and for some reason is extremely interested in knowing the identity of Ruby's mother. Why was he so motivated by Ruby Sunday's mystery? What took him so long to intervene for the thousands of years he's supposedly been strapped to the TARDIS? He genuinely had nothing better to do? Was he genuinely waiting for the Doctor to do this little PowerPoint presentation to UNIT before revealing himself? And what was Harriet Arbinger doing this whole time? All of this nonsense could have been avoided if, say, we had the Beast.
Toby.
Or the Trickster instead. Oh, speaking of, patrons are going to get access to a live discussion of the first 2 series of Sarah Jane Adventures over on my Discord server on the 14th of July. I'm going to be recording it as well, so patrons can just watch it if they do miss it. I did a reaction video to the first series a few years ago, and I intend to make more of them over the next 2 months. Shameless plug for the Patreon page over. Let's continue. The trio enter this nostalgia TARDIS, which was built by Memories. I think it's a fair enough excuse for this mini TARDIS being made of bits and pieces from across the show's existence. That little Chibnall era TARDIS miniature in the middle of this thing was so damn cute. I also thought that this moment with the Doctor owning up to the death of everywhere he'd visited was quite an emotional moment.
The universe has come to a halt, and it is my fault because I traveled to all those worlds.
It's just a shame he couldn't see that it was the neglect of his time machine that caused this. It's an even bigger shame that the focus wasn't put on the companions at this point. It might have been interesting to see how the 2 women might react to the potential isolation induced by the trio effectively being stuck in this tiny box for eternity. Instead, it's all about the Doctor regretting traveling the universe because he thought it was fun.
I thought it was fun.
Get over yourself, man. And why do you cry in like nearly every episode? We then have this bizarre, pointless, and hilariously bad scene with the Doctor and Fleabag's sister.
Have you got any med?
Like the Doctor and this random woman in a tent chat about how death has come and deleted memories, deleted facts, deleted planet names, deleted place names, deleted baby names, all this crap just to get a spoon?
I suppose you do have a very nice face.
Aloe vera gel and tea tree oil.
Back in the TARDIS, things got so boring apparently that even Ruby forced herself to watch the Pyramids of Mars episodes.
Yeah, I never understood what was all that Egyptian stuff.
Cultural appropriation.
Like at first I thought, yeah, fair enough.
Superstitious savage.
But the Egyptian stuff was the most interesting part of those episodes. Was having Egyptian gods show up in your story too culturally insensitive for you, Russell? I don't know why he feels this massive burden of guilt for wanting to correct every perceived mistake of the past. It isn't sexy, and it certainly isn't very metal either. Maybe the showrunners should have been more concerned with the continuity of the characters' costumes instead of their appropriateness. This tiny TARDIS had 2 sets of cargo pants and a red jumper lying around. Thanks to the 73 Yards episode being in existence, the time window tablet thing shows the trio a clue to finding Ruby's mum. Apparently, the only way to do this was to travel to 2046 on the day of Prime Minister Roger Ap Williams' downfall, because he kept DNA records of all the civilians or something.
2046, here we come!
Well, 2046 doesn't exist, does it?
Yes, but it is preserved in death, because I once landed there, so it's fixed, yeah?
Preserved in death. Give me a break. It wouldn't have mattered if he went there or not. It would still be catastrophically warped beyond comprehension from the multiple instances of death happening simultaneously across time. To suddenly say, oh yeah, I was there, and that somehow magically preserves the reality of mandatory DNA collection is just ridiculous.
Ridiculous!
This class is ridiculous.
I was in this building for the overthrow of Roger Ap Gwilliam. It was the Department of Health. The DNA list was locked away under top security. But guess who invented the security?
It was him, wasn't it? Well, isn't that bloody convenient?
Mel, you better keep watch.
When the doctor says this line, he's looking at the screen, right? I thought Mel was being asked to watch the screen, so when she just walked out of the door all slowly and dramatically, I just burst out laughing. Just when they found a DNA match, Mel, now a servant of Sutekh, somehow came back into the room standing within inches of the doctor, like a weeping angel that couldn't quite grasp their victim. Like, was this silly Christmas song playing so loudly that nobody heard the door open?
I loved you, Mel. And what good did you love to, Doctor?
Wait, I know that sound effect. When you hit the woe part. There! I knew it! Oh my god. What the hell is wrong with my ears? Like, how the hell was I able to identify that?
Bring me the Time Lord and the child.
Since when was the TARDIS equipped with a transmat beam? Ruby offers up her sacrifice to Sutekh and then...
I threw it on the ground!
What absolute insanity then unfolds from here, ladies and gentlemen. Ruby throws the magical, intelligent rope they introduced 20 minutes earlier. There also happens to be intelligent gloves and an intelligent whistle that wind up appearing on the Nostalgia TARDIS. They wind up appearing in the Nostalgia TARDIS. Where have all these gadgets, bar the gloves, been this entire series? The Doctor doesn't need to be intelligent anymore. He can just materialize gadgets that can do the thinking for him. This whistle can reactivate the TARDIS and cause it to blast itself across the room without doing any damage to itself or the door it lands on. Then came the most impressive visual spectacle of the entire series, and I couldn't help but smile at the entire thing. I would be pretty spellbound if I went and saw this in the cinema, like I know many did. The whole taking a dog for a walk idea was quite hilarious, but again, all the suspense surrounding this character, and then to have such an easy and humiliating defeat, the greatest evil the Doctors ever face, would not let their minions stand there for 20 whole seconds whilst being chained up to the TARDIS. Only then are they actually commanded to kill, and for an entire 30 seconds after that, the two servants just walk towards the Doctor and Ruby. No dust of death being employed here. Sutekh, clawing the time vortex, somehow manages to fix everything. Oh my god, with the sound effects again. I know the one. It goes... I'm a wizard. You know what's hilarious? I got this from an Art Attack CD-ROM back in the day. The Doctor then name drops a bunch of planets that had their life returned to them, alienating Ruby and a significant portion of the audience in the process. Even him mentioning the Ood Sphere didn't get me excited. Like, I just don't care. Move on. They couldn't even do the God of Death's death justice.
We fought a monster, and now I must become a monster.
Like, what are we supposed to make of this? Ruby has nothing to say, doesn't attempt to stop him, all just for this badass, trailer-worthy, super serious shot of the Doctor walking towards the camera and sending Sutekh into the time vortex again. This is exactly what happened in the Pyramids of Mars. If he can magically cling on to the TARDIS back then, why can't he do it again here? One beautiful shot of a London sunset later, the annoying characters have one final annoying scene together. They gave Morris a bit of pizza instead of any dialogue.
I think Unit can use you.
Oh.
But anything to help, I don't mind.
And apparently Susan Triad should just give up her life as a wealthy tech billionaire to become one of Unit's lackeys. I mean, Unit will just hire anybody these days, right? Turns out they didn't need to go to the future to find out who Ruby's mother was. They could have done it at the Unit HQ this entire time. Oh yeah, Ruby's mum is just some ordinary woman called Louise. Don't get me wrong, I think there was something quite nice about how ordinary she is. We are often made to place importance on so many grand ideas in our life that it's sometimes easy to miss the importance of ordinary things like family. Their reunion scene in the cafe was really well performed and the music was great too. Actually, big shout out to Murray in these two episodes. He is really pulling his weight and it's such a shame that the script is just not helping him at all. I even really enjoyed this loop back to the Doctor's lack of reconciliation with his own parents. He's probably seeing what he would really like to have happen in his own life, and maybe that's why he can't hang around with Ruby any longer. Maybe he's jealous. It's nice that this wasn't all blurted out by the Doctor in an obvious way to end things with the pair on a potentially sour note. Ncuti's performance was really nice.
And now, Ruby Sunday, goodbye.
But then we see all these women lined up, and I realize just how insane it is that these three just unanimously accept the idea of a man with a police box that travels in time and space. We don't get to see how any of these characters would react to such information at all series. What a waste. Rewinding just a bit, I was led on to believe something seriously dark was happening regarding Ruby's conception.
Records say her stepfather was, well, he was trouble. I think she did the right thing getting you out of that house. Father, William Benjamin Garnett, 15 at the time.
The order of information delivery here, my god. Ruby's father, this William bloke, needed to be established in the dialogue first, by stating the reason for Ruby's abandonment first, instead of the fact that two teenagers clearly wouldn't have been able to financially support this child. The dialogue makes it initially seem like Louise's stepfather was Ruby's father.
Oh my god. I think they found him. My dad, William.
Yes, I killed your dad.
Louise moved to Coventry at the age of 18. Did well, got a degree.
Eva Tarquin has a degree.
I feel so misled that all the build-up in the series surrounding Ruby's mother now doesn't make any sense. Why does it snow in physical reality whenever those strong emotions of abandonment are felt? If it was all in Ruby's head, that might have worked better, seeing as the only memory of her mother she has is that VHS tape she watches every year that looks like snow. What was it about Ruby's song that scared Maestro so badly 6 episodes prior? Why would a 15-year-old be wearing this super fantastical cloak?
I cosplayed.
Like she was gonna offer the Doctor an accord.
I offer you an accord.
Why Louise Miller wore an ancient medieval cloak to the church? I think that's time shrouding her.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that.
Yeah, that's
We actually, no, and that's Pat, we
That's
asked her to be
good.
shrouded.
Yeah.
It's like, because she had to be for the sake of the story.
You know, if I wasn't recording at 12:30 p.m. right now, I would be totally taking a shot of something with at least 40% alcohol in it. Coffee will have to do. And the whole pointing thing, Louise wasn't pointing at the TARDIS, wasn't pointing at the Doctor, she was pointing at the road sign.
I always thought it was called Ruby because the social workers chose it, or the paramedics, or whatever, but no, it was her. My own mother chose it.
What if Ruby had been born a boy? Like, that would have been rather awkward, wouldn't it?
There's good stuff to come. There's really crucial stories for Ruby to come, and her family. The story of that family hasn't finished yet. That will all make sense when you see it, so more to come.
Oh yeah, please tickle my balls some more. No, too little, too late.
And what happens, you might wonder, to that mysterious traveler in time and space known as the Doctor?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So, did it suck? Yeah. Yeah, it did. Even though this series has been underwhelming, it has had a few good episodes. It just doesn't have a single great episode, bar Wild Blue Yonder, and even that's not technically season 1. This season 1 needed to be fresher than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, yet it's so dependent on the past with the establishment of this Whoniverse. It's why the best episodes in this season have been isolated adventures. I know it's easy to look back on Jodie's era and think, thank God we don't have to put up with that any longer, but even that era is being leaned on for characterization of Gatwa's Doctor. He should have acknowledged it in Wild Blue Yonder and left it at that. Anyway, I know you're all waiting for my reactions to all the episodes in this series, so here it goes. Amazing. It was alright. Fine, I guess. Could have been so much more. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I give The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death a 3 out of 10.